Hello, welcome back to Vinyl Show and Tell. Thanks as always for tuning in. Hope everyone's doing alright, braving the cold weather and all that. So, as the title suggests, today's video is about heavy rock albums from the 70s. It's a subject I've kind of been mulling over the last couple of weeks, and I've compiled a list of just really excellent records, what you call killer records, from the golden era that I wanted to talk about. Some are obscure, some I would regard not so obscure, so yeah, take your pick. So anyway, without further ado, let's crack on, show these. Right, before I start, just a disclaimer. When it comes to sort of hard rock in the 70s, I am going to stick to the slightly more unknown. I love Black Sabbath, I love Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin and all that. They are well-known albums, they're well-known bands, so I won't be showing those sort of particular kind of giants here. These are more, these are smaller artists and ones that you might not have heard of. So there we go. Right, first of all, not a terribly obscure one. Not a terribly obscure band, they were quite successful actually. This album is by Mountain, it's called Nantucket Sleighride. This one I believe is from 1972 or 1971, I should really do my homework as usual. So Mountain, they'd already released an album before this called Climbing, which is very, very good indeed and does get a lot of praise, and quite rightly so. To my ears, this album is the one that really, really deserves the praise. It is an absolute belter of a record. It's phenomenally good. It's very, very heavy. You've only got to listen to the opening track to realise how heavy this is. It's just a driving rhythm. They are essentially derived from kind of, they're sort of blue. They're probably a little bit derivative, getting my words out, from the blues. Quite a typical sound of the early 70s, but it's incredible. Pounding drums, amazing lead guitar. The thing that makes this album so special in my view is the third track on it, which is the title track, Nantucket Sleighride. It's probably one of my best tracks ever. Funnily enough, I watched a video fairly recently by John Bellamy. He was talking about prog records, and this is actually quite a proggy track amongst the sort of the more straight ahead bluesy hard rock. But Nantucket Sleighride is just an incredible tune. It just goes through sort of so many different phases, and then it just speeds up into this hard and driving rhythm. It is absolutely wonderful. What's also interesting about that track is the heavy section on it. Was a snippet of that was taken in the 70s and given over to a political programme that was shown, I believe, Sunday lunchtimes before my time. This is probably just around the time I was born. And it was called Weekend World. Now, if you listen to the track Nantucket Sleighride and then go onto YouTube and type Weekend World theme tune and then listen to the snippet and put it into context, it is incredible that they chose that for a political programme in the 70s as the theme tune. I don't know where they came up with that. Absolutely brilliant choice, but it just seems an unusual one. I mean, these political programmes, they still go on today on Sunday mornings and afternoons. They've been a sort of mainstay at the BBC for decades now. But there we go, Mountain, Nantucket Sleighride. This one's on a UK pressing on Ireland. It was pressed in the US on Windfall. It is not difficult to find, not expensive, I would say. I mean, in the UK, £15 to £20 tops. It's probably even less in the US. So yeah, I can't recommend that enough. Right, next up, this is such a favourite of mine. This one is by Hard Stuff. I have to say that for a band name, that's awful. Do not be put off. The album is called Bulletproof. As I understand it, they were originally called Bullet, but there was another band who had that name, so they changed it to Hard Stuff, which is not quite as good. I remember when I was, this was a top want for many years. The reason being is because two of the members here were from Atomic Rooster, or one of the many lineups of Atomic Rooster, and the bass player here was from Quatermass. At the time, I was huge fans of both bands, so this was a no-brainer to try and get hold of, and it did not disappoint. So they're a power trio, guitars, bass, drums, vocals, of course, and what can I say? Absolute killer stuff. It is just hard and heavy. At times they can be quite funky. The bass player, John Gustafsson, he was quite a funky bass player, and again, the opening track is it's just a 2.5 minute hard funk masterpiece. It just, as soon as it bursts in, you're just alive with the rhythm. You know, sometimes I can't listen to it without air drumming along to it. But the rest of the tracks it's just of an absolute high standard all the way through. Musicianship's incredible. It's really heavy, fuzz guitar, exceptionally good lead guitar, great playing. So yeah, I can't recommend this one enough. John Gustafsson, the bass player I was talking about there, you may have heard of him later on in his career. He was one of the many session musicians with Roxy Music, and played that funky bass line on Love Is a Drug. So yeah, it just goes to show sort of what a funky bass player he was. This one is on Purple Records, a label owned by Deep Purple themselves. It's quite scarce, it's a little bit pricey, but it's not mega expensive, and I do believe it's been reissued. So if you like hard rock, this is absolutely essential. I believe it was issued in the US as well with a different cover. And they did do a second album called Bolex Dementia. That's not a bad album, but it's not as good as this. This is a masterpiece. It's a 5-star record. The second album is okay. Maybe I should revisit it. My opinion might change over time. Oh, here's a good one. Right, this is One and Done. A UK band, another UK. Bedlam. Now, this was released on Chrysalis Records. The producer on this was Felix Pappalardi, who was actually in Mountain, who I've just showed. He actually also he was the producer on some of Cream's latest records as well. This one's got probably sounds a little bit like Mountain, to be fair. It's kind of, you know, having the same producer, it's kind of got that feel to it. The key ingredient in this record is we have got on the drums the late great Cozy Powell, who is one of rock's, or was greatly missed, one of rock's greatest drummers. He is a thunder god on the drums. His rhythms are amazing. He just pounds them, and everything he's on, to me, just sounds absolutely out of this world. And this is a great record. It is just, you know, balls deep hard rock. Incredibly good vocals, brilliant guitar, and obviously those amazing drums. Shame it's a one and done, but what can you do? I've seen plenty of these in the wild. It's a little bit on the scarce side, but it's not pricey. I think £20 to £30 here in the UK. So not difficult to find at all, and comes, as always, highly recommended. Definitely one to check out. Okay, next up, I'm going to show 2 albums by this band actually. They have been shown a few times in the VC, and quite rightly so. Sir Lord Baltimore. They're on hard rock US band on Mercury Records. This is their debut, called Kingdom Come, and they released the second one, self-titled as well. This is a really sort of doomy sounding band. You know, they're heading, you know, their guitar sound is really kind of heading towards a kind of Black Sabbath sound. I'm sure it's possible they were sort of influenced from them, coming from, I think this debut was 71 or 72, so already sort of Black Sabbath had been around for a few years. But yeah, absolutely killer riffs, amazing vocals, everything you want from a hard rock record. This one, a little bit more on the experimental side, I have to say. The first track takes up most of side 1. It's a lengthy suite. It goes a little bit more proggy, but the rest of the tracks are just back to basics, hard and heavy. Sometimes some of the tracks on the second side sound a bit sort of garagey at times. Really, really good indeed. In terms of scarcity, yeah, relatively scarce. They were never released here in the UK. I've got a US original here, which I think is relatively common in the US. It was released in Germany and France as well. Again, the second self-titled album, fairly easy in the US. This is actually a Dutch original, so it was released in the Netherlands and I believe other places in Europe as well. But again, for whatever reason, not in the UK, or not that I'm aware of. So, Sir Lord Baltimore, do it, get it, it's great. Oh, this one's a good one. Right, okay, so hard rock from Israel, self-titled, from 1972 by Jericho. This is an original on the brown A&M Records. So just to give a little bit of background on Jericho, they started life as the Churchills, which I think I've talked about before on this channel. Great psychedelic band. Just they released one album in 1968 or 69. It is impossible to find an original. It was only released in Israel, I believe, but it has since been reissued. But it is an amazing psychedelic record. As time went on, as these psychedelic bands do, their sound got heavier and more progressive. So they changed their name to Jericho Jones, released an album called Junkies, Monkeys and Donkeys, which is very, very good. I would say that is probably their kind of more progressive record, but it's pretty heavy. And then they shortened their name to Jericho and released this absolute banger of an album. It is incredible. I believe it was recorded here in the UK. I think that's where they were actually based. But it's unbelievable. It really does go into a more progressive rock territory. It's only 5 tracks, very, very lengthy. There's only 2 of them on side 2, and they take up, they're sort of going into double figures in length. But they are heavy enough to be regarded as a hard rock band, I think. Again, the opening track, I know I keep talking about opening tracks, but this one, as soon as you hear it, you will be hooked. It's it's just this driving rhythm. It's just like, sounds like speeding down a highway. Unbelievable guitar riffs. And it goes on, you think it's an instrumental, and in about the last 2 minutes of the track, the vocals kick in, and it just knocks you sideways. The vocals absolutely scream. They are so kind of forward in the mix, and it's just like this unbelievable heavy kind of rock and roll number. But every track on this is brilliant. The UK originals, I mean, I did pay a bit for this, but prices are getting a little bit high. It is a scarce record, it is a pricey record. Fortunately, as far as I'm aware, it's been reissued several times. So if you do want to reissue, if you do want to check it out, it shouldn't be too difficult to find. So yeah, self-titled by Jericho. What can I say? Amazing stuff. Okay, right, we got a German band here with a vocalist. Yeah, he was from the UK. Lucifer's Friend. Now, Lucifer's Friend, they were relatively big in Germany, I think, and they released several albums. This is their self-titled debut. I'm showing this one in particular because this really is their hard rock masterpiece. They were a great band, but every single album they did tended to really shift in style. Second album, much more experimental. Third album goes into a more commercial, almost glammy sound. And the fourth record they almost go a bit jazzy. But this debut record is a hard rock monster. If you can imagine a cross between Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath at their very best, you've got this. And I would say, because of the organ sound in this, distorted organ riffs, you've got a pinch of Deep Purple. So you've got a sound alike of kind of the 3 UK giants there. So yeah, what more can I say? It's got every ingredient that you want. It's a slightly proggy in its arrangements, but it is just so heavy. It's loud, it's raucous, it's amazing. So this is a German original on Philips. Was released on the US on a label called Billingsgate. That in the US is pretty easy to find and much cheaper. These German Philips originals are more pricey. There is a UK press as well, which I've never ever seen. I would say it's one of the, it It must be one of the rarest UK releases around that time. I have never ever seen one ever in real life. There's a couple knocking about on Discogs, but yeah, that really is a scarcity if you can get hold of it. But it has been reissued over the years, so it isn't too difficult to get in some decent form. Can't recommend it enough. Lucifer's Friend. Okay, we're going a little bit more obscure here. Now this is a reissue, before you all gasp when I show it. Okay, this is by a band called Samuel Prody. Self-titled, one and done. I've seen originals of this. You're talking at least £300 for a decent original. I think it was released on a label called Global or Globus. I can't remember which. But this is a decent reissue. I don't know how authorised it is. It's on Nemo Records. It sounds alright to my ears. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I don't know why this UK band only had their album released in Germany at the time. Yeah, I'm sure there's a story behind it, but it is brilliant. It's a pretty short record. It's barely half an hour long, but it sometimes it almost reminds me of kind of pre-punk. They're really, the sound is very, very raw indeed. It's just the guitars are so up front, the vocals are wailing, but it's just raw enough to kind of sound punky. The music is not terribly overcomplicated, although the opening track, weirdly enough, is a heavy cover from the soundtrack, I believe, to Oliver Twist, which is a bit weird, but it works. Don't be put off. So yeah, I'm sure I read on their website or a similar website that they added a keyboard player in their later incarnations when they were still touring but not recording. Keyboard player was Dave Greenfield, young Dave Greenfield, who ended up in the Stranglers. Brilliant keyboard player. But anyway, yeah, as I understand it, I think Gerson Records are reissuing this officially in a couple of months. So if you can pick it up, do so. If you can get an original, even better. Absolutely brilliant record. Samuel Prody. Right, now we're getting into really good hard hitters. Okay, the album I'm about to show I have shown before, and I have raved about it before. The reason I'm showing it again, I actually showed it on a video that I did about coloured vinyl, but that video absolutely tanked. I mean, it got barely 200 views, which is a bit of a shame. But so yeah, I'm showing it again. So we have got it. This is a band called Fresh Blueberry Pancake. The album is called Heavy. Very, very apt indeed. And they are a power trio from the United States, and this album was recorded in 1970. So just to give you a bit of background, this record in its original form was a private press, I believe less than 100 copies, and if you can find one, will probably set you back thousands of pounds, dollars or euros. It will be an impossibility to own one, I would say, unless you're in those circles. So fortunately it has been reissued. Now this reissue is on Shaddocks. This was reissued, I think I got this in the early noughties. Now this itself has gained some value, and Discogs now list it as unofficial. It's been reissued again, I believe completely officially, on red vinyl. And that has had a limited release in the United States. So I'd certainly say if you're in the United States, you would be able to find a decent reissue of this if you looked online. Anyway, enough about that. The music. This is absolutely incredible. It's probably more of like a heavy psych record, to be fair. It's got great riffs. The fuzz guitar. I mean, the fuzz on the guitar is, it's up to 11. It is absolutely wonderful. The sound of the band is great. You listen to it, this is clearly a band who have just recorded their live set live in the studio with no overdubs. It sounds crystal clear and brilliant. Very, very raw. If you listen carefully on a decent system, you can even hear the sort of buzzing of the amplifiers in the background. It really has got that live feel to it. But musically, they are incredible. The fuzz guitar, they've almost got a slight jazzy feel to them. The drummer kind of really, he kind of swings. It's got a sort of swinging rhythm to it, and the bass player is kind of like a lead bass player, where the guitarist is more of a sort of, you know, thrashing out real sort of fuzz chords, but does a bit of lead as well. It's bluesy, it's jazzy, it's psychedelic, it's, as the title suggests, it's heavy. I cannot recommend this album enough. I think it's an absolute masterpiece record, and doesn't get talked about enough for good reason. Well, not for good reason, but it is a rarity at the end of the day. But I'm glad that it's out there and has been reissued. So please look it up. Please give it a listen if you can. It is amazing, and I might as well show you, because I've shown it before. This Shaddocks reissue, which is a great, you know, despite the fact that it's apparently unofficial, it's a great pressing, and it's on blue vinyl. I think the recent reissues, as I said, are on red vinyl, which is not very appropriate when you consider what they're called. Okay, for the final record, so this one is incredible. Here we go. It's by a band called Death, and the album is called For the Whole World to See. So this is not related in any way to the album called Death, the death metal band, who are around, I believe, in the late 80s and early 90s. I can't give too much of a backstory on this one. The reason being is because they have such a huge backstory. So much so, there is a documentary about this band and this album. I believe it's on Amazon. And if you do get to hear this record, or you know it, then the actual feature-length documentary is well worth watching. It is amazing how this all came about. But this was recorded in 1975. It remained unissued until in 2009 it was finally released by Drag City. The very basic story goes that the band themselves, 3 siblings, got together, formed a band which I don't believe toured very much, if at all. They rehearsed in their bedroom, managed to get some studio time, put their tracks down onto tape. Not a long album, it's only about 25 minutes long, so all it needs to be. And then never got released. They didn't get a record deal for various reasons. There was a single, 2 tracks lifted off this record, released as a single in the 70s, which absolutely tanked and is now worth a small fortune. But the master tapes from the recordings were fortunately retrieved from a family member and then reissued on this. And it is an astonishingly good record. It is an absolute banger. What's so great about it is that apart from the fact that the musicianship is so good, so tight, you can hear that they've just really rehearsed. They are amazing musicians. It is played at really fast, kind of breakneck speed, so it kind of sounds like proto-punk. Now, I don't believe that they were influenced from punk of any, you know, it was 1975, punk hadn't, you know, there was a little bit of punk around in the US, certainly, but it hadn't really sort of hit big time. Certainly hadn't really hit in the UK. But, you know, they were definitely a hard rock band, but they just played at great speed. So, if you like hard rock, if you like punk, I mean, if you like both, this is an album to pick up. I only got this a couple of years ago, and I was just knocked sideways at how good it was. It is so heavy. The musicianship is absolutely stellar on it, and it is just it really does knock you for 6 how good it is. And then when you combine it with the backstory, if you do want to ever watch the documentary, it's an amazing record. What is good about this is that there are no originals, and it's still in print. Now, I checked this the other day on Discogs, and in the US there are dozens and dozens of people selling it, and there are sellers all over the world with copies at affordable prices, around the £20 mark, $20 mark. I think you could probably get it on Amazon as well if you choose to go down that route. So this album is in print and could actually be available from, if you've got a good independent record shop or store, it could still be available. It's an essential hard rock record. It's absolutely mind-blowingly good. I can't say much more about it. I know this thing has been praised before, and I have seen this mentioned a couple of times in the VC, which is where I was alerted. I think this always used to come up in my recommendations on Discogs as well. It just kept coming up all of the time. So I checked it out, and I'm so glad I did. It is an absolute masterpiece. As I said, it's only 25 minutes long, but you know, it really is quality over quantity. So yeah, Death for the whole world to see. It is an absolutely brilliant hard rock record and essential for anyone who likes that genre. So that's it. That's all I'm going to show. I did have other ideas for albums, but to be fair, I could go on and on and on, and these videos sometimes get long enough, especially when I get over passionate and talking about these records. So hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any suggestions on hard rock albums to listen to, please leave them in the comments. I'm still buying records all the time. I'm still learning loads. There's loads of albums that I've never heard of and don't know about. So I would absolutely love to hear your suggestions. But as I say, if you like the genre and you haven't got any of those, I really can't recommend them enough. They are, you know, they are all available in some form and are well worth getting hold of. So anyway, that's it. That's all from me. Thanks again for watching. There'll be more videos coming in the next few months. So take care, and I'll see you again soon.